This is part 2 of a series on Nimrod. We see in the previous video, titled Nimrod, his mysterious transformation, that it all begins with an unusual inheritance, the animal skins given to Adam and Eve by God. Part 2 explores the further transformation that occurred after he rose to become king. After he became king, he started to grow in fame, and he would have people visiting him, bringing him gifts, accolades, and his ego is clearly growing, and it is getting to him because we start to see, as listed in the book of Jasher, and now the book of Jasher, as I mentioned, is a very reputable source of biblical history. It states that now, after becoming king, Nimrod is now building statues and idols. He's no longer worshiping the Lord. Instead, he's worshiping these idols. And on top of that, he's not just worshiping idols. He is determined to swerve the people away from the one true God, and he's teaching them to worship these idols as well. And Nimrod dwelt in China, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great. And all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their Lord and King. And they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar. And Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. But Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days. And he made gods of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against the Lord, and taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon, his son, was more wicked than his father. Nimrod comes in, using a gift from the Lord, strengthening himself, and then rebelling against the Lord, introducing unrighteous ways. And in fact, you see that he goes on further. He starts doing this occultic activity, and he builds the Tower of Babel. The whole point of the Tower of Babel is to penetrate into heaven. You know what that is? It's illegally gaining entrance into heavenly realms, where yes, you can enter illegally. There's a price to pay, though. There's a consequence for that. Babylon is known as being an occultic city. It's known for the birthplace of all these Babylonian gods and goddesses. It has a history of paganism and mystery religions. So Nimrod, we see now, is partaking of all manner of sorcery and magic and witchcraft. And now he is being transformed negatively. It's said that this activity that he was involved in, this is what transformed him into Gibborim, or the Nephilim. These strange practices. And they would do strange things, like they would have these temples, places of worship. They would have temple prostitutes. How do you worship the gods and goddesses of Babylon? You have to engage in relations with these prostitutes. That's their form of worship. It's so perverted. Also, they would do human sacrifice and all manner of strange, perverted things. I don't even want to mention, but I have to share this so you understand the level of iniquity and wickedness Nimrod was involved in, and that was changing him. So much so that he was transforming into alien DNA. It's so weird. Okay, more about Babylon. Do you know what else Babylon was known for? Babylon was really the crown of Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is the ancient region. It includes Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran. Babylon It's in modern-day Iraq. So, but at that time, Babylon was the crown of Mesopotamia. It was so prosperous, and Nimrod had been so victorious over all his enemies and had really gained popularity and prosperity. And if you look at the city of Babylon, it was very orderly and very organized, very beautiful, very technologically advanced. The Mesopotamian people invented so many discoveries. They came up with the concept of time. They came up with Chaldean numerology, astronomy, and the study of astrology. This was all their expertise. This stemmed from Babylon. They also invented the wheel. They invented the plow. They invented the sailboat. They were very talented, intelligent, skillful people. They created the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which is the seventh wonder of the world. Babylon was located in the ancient civilization of Samaria. And according to an article that I found on history.com, Samaria, or Sumer, was an ancient civilization founded in the Mesopotamia region of the Fertile Crescent, situated between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, known for their innovations in language, governance, architecture, and more. Sumerians are considered the creators of civilization as modern humans understand it. They also developed the map charting system. The oldest map was discovered in Babylonia around 2300 BC. Mesopotamia is often known as the cradle of civilization. They developed the concept of urbanization. The invention of agriculture made it possible to feed more people and animals living in a single location. For the first time in history, humans started to settle in a specific place. They also developed mathematics because the people started to trade and they needed an accurate system to count the goods they were giving and receiving. People learned to trade, and the concept of taxes was developed, along with a system of laws. And then, of course, they developed the first form of writing on the cuneiform to maintain business records. They were exceptionally gifted in astronomy and astrology and had very thorough records and charts of celestial objects. And they would have these monuments, they were called ziggurats, which were pyramids. And these were pyramids with levels and steps. But actually, these pyramids were shrines. On top of each ziggurat, they would have a shrine for one of their gods or goddesses. The Tower of Babel was actually a ziggurat, a pyramid with a shrine that was dedicated to the most powerful of their gods, which was Marduk. Interesting thing about Marduk. Marduk, the name Marduk means solar calf. Okay, what does that bring to mind? Marduk was the original name. His name was later changed to Bel and then to Baal. There were so many Bible verses warning against the worship of Baal that I could not list them all. At least 51 verses from 10 different books in the Bible. Jeremiah 32:35. And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire to Molech, which I did not command them, nor did it come into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. We see throughout the Bible that the enemy of God is this false god Baal, and it derived from Babylon. Do you remember when Moses went up into the mountain to be with the Lord, to receive the commandments? Aaron was put in charge of the people, and what does he do? Exodus 32, the gold calf. Now when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, Come, make us gods that shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And Aaron said to them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. Then they said, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." On the 40th day, they just could not wait. And Aaron, to appease them, he takes their jewelry and gathers it and builds a golden calf. Baal, the same Babylonian god, came from this worship that Nimrod propagated. Do you know what's interesting about the name Babylon? Babylon means gate of the gods. Not the one true God, gate of the false gods. So Babylon literally opened the gate to all counterfeit religions, occultism, everything that the Lord wanted to wash from the earth. Nimrod opened up the gates and ushered it back in. We see that Babylon is the seat of wickedness and the door that opened up to all this false worship and sorcery. Genesis 11:4. And they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." The whole point of the Tower of Babel was to enter into heaven. If you read the book of Jasher, they had a desire to invade heaven and attack God. In fact, while they were building the Tower of Babel, they would release arrows into the sky to kill heavenly beings. These people were just so wicked and so treacherous. Jasher 9:25. And the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin. And they began to build it. And whilst they were building against the Lord God of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him, and to ascend into heaven. And the Lord knew their thoughts, and it came to pass when they were building, they cast the arrows toward the heavens, and all the arrows fell upon them filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, "Surely we have slain all those that are in heaven." For this was from the Lord, in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from off of the face of the ground. And God said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, "Come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor." And they did so unto them. And from that day following they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, that he would die. And they did so for many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. And the Lord smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. And this is why rebellion is tied to a spirit of confusion, because it is pure confusion to go against the will of God. And God is not the author of confusion, but the enemy is. 1 Corinthians 14:33. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints. There's a very reputable Jewish historian, Josephus Flavius. He writes about Nimrod's intentions, and he speaks about how Nimrod was the original person who was planning this one world government. He wanted to gain dominance. He wanted to enter into spiritual realms illegally and gain dominion and become the ruler of the world. The one world government started with Nimrod. Josephus Flavius writes concerning the Tower of Babylon and the confusion of tongues. But they, imagining the prosperity they enjoyed, was not derived from the favor of God, but supposing that their own power was the proper cause of the plentiful condition they were in, did not obey him. Nay, they added to this their disobedience to the divine will, the suspicion that they were therefore ordered to send out separate colonies, that being divided asunder, they might the more easily be oppressed. Now it was Nimrod who excited them to such an affront and contempt of God. He was the grandson of Ham, the son of Noah, a bold man, and of great strength of hand. He persuaded them not to ascribe it to God, as if it was through his means they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God, but to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. He also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again, for that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Now the multitude were very ready to follow the determination of Nimrod, and to esteem it a piece of cowardice to submit to God. And they built a tower, neither sparing any pains, nor being in any degree negligent about the work, and by reason of the multitude of hands employed in it, it grew very high, sooner than anyone could expect. Nimrod and his Tower of Babel, which in the end times is the one world government, with a one world religion which is called Mystery Babylon, covering both the religious and political Babylon, written off in Revelation 17 and 18. In fact, it has been stated that Babylon was the primeval source from which all systems of idolatry flowed. This includes every spiritual practice, every organized religion that uses statues, idols, or believes in polytheism. His forefathers, they believed in one God. But Nimrod, he just perverted everything. Nimrod propagated polytheism. By definition, polytheism is the belief in or worship of more than one God. If you look at polytheism, there's always many gods. There's always a few who are stronger, and there's always one main God who is the highest above all. Like in Greek mythology, it's Zeus. In Babylon, it was Marduk. They had so many gods. One of their gods was Dagon. Dagon was a half man and half fish, merman. They had mermaids and mermen. They were false gods. So if you think mermaids and mermen are cute, these are actual demonic beings, hybrids. They would do anything to pervert God's original design. So they like hybrids. They like twisting what God has designed and making it something else. Dagon is mentioned later on in the Bible. When the ark was stolen by the Philistines placed the ark inside the temple of Dagon. What happened when the ark was in the temple of Dagon? It could not bear the presence of God. The Philistines found the next day Dagon was found on the ground, facing the ark, on the ground, as though bowing before the Lord. And they put it up again the next day. This time when they came back, Dagon was on the ground again, but this time his head was chopped off and his hands were chopped off. It's as though the power of God went out, whoosh, and just could not put up with this profanity, these false gods. Dagon was from Babylon. This completes part 2 of a series I'm making on Nimrod. Do leave me a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And subscribe to this channel so that you'll be notified of part 3, which will be posted soon. Thank you and Shalom.